Courtney Melba Barnett is an Australian singer, songwriter, and guitarist. She's best known for her deadpan singing style and witty and rambling lyrics, and she was early on recognized for her two first EPs, I've Got a Friend Called Emily Ferris from 2012, and How to Carve a Carrot into a Rose from 2013. But despite of her skyrocketing to fame, she's not a huge fan of being in the limelight. For a long time, she struggled to get over her anxiety and shy nature, which still follows her to this day. But she didn't let that stop her from releasing two full-length albums and even creating her own record label. So let's take a closer look at one of rock music's shining new stars. Courtney started playing the guitar when she was 10. She started getting guitar lessons, learned something from her older brother and his friends who also play the guitar. For a long time, she wanted to get one of her own, until she one day managed to persuade her parents into getting one for her.
I remember Dad taught me Smoke on the Water. It took him like an hour to figure it out and teach it to me. My neighbour taught me Come As You Are, Something in the Way.
So Courtney learned a bit from everyone, picked up chords and songs as she went along, and because she was left-handed, she started playing a right-handed guitar upside down.
Anyone who's left-handed is sitting around and they don't have a strong guitar, Courtney Barnett is here to show you.
This being said, Courtney is far from a guitar fanatic though. She just loves playing them, so oftentimes she'd just ask her friends if they could buy the guitars for her. Eventually, she switched to a left-handed guitar, of course. To begin with, she learned to play music by Nirvana, Jimi Hendrix, and Green Day, since she had only one cassette mixtape with their music on it to begin with. Nirvana was definitely something that impacted her greatly, both the music and the style. Later on, she became more interested in local Australian artists too, like Darren Hanlon and Paul Kelly. And we also know for a fact that she's a huge Patti Smith fan. It was when she was 20 years old that she moved to Melbourne and got introduced to Patti Smith for the first time. She listened to Horses, which was arguably one of her favorite records from that moment onwards. But Patti Smith and the artists that I mentioned are probably just the beginning of a long list of music that she's into. Now, talking a little bit more about her history, at the age of 18, she played in a cover band playing in local venues. She both played with the band and by herself as a solo artist during open mic nights.
Kind of started songwriting when I was like a teenager, and then 18 when I was in Hobart started playing songs, so I've kind of been writing wherever I am.
But she never managed to focus her efforts on anything specific. At the age of 23, she started playing guitar for a grunge band in Melbourne called Rapid Transit. They released one album together on cassette. Then, in 2011, she started playing for another band called Immigrant Union that was more into psychedelic rock and country music. She appeared on their second album, Anyway. Later on, in 2013, she collaborated with Jen Cloher on her third album, In Blood Memory, and has played in Cloher's band quite often ever since they developed a relationship together. It was first after these collaborations that Courtney Barnett gained the confidence to record her own music, although she thought it was quite an emotional challenge to go through to begin with.
Because I was always so nervous on stage until recently, even though I still get really nervous, but I think I used to be so self-conscious about what people thought, and then you kind of start realizing that it doesn't matter. I don't really care what people think.
As mentioned in the introduction, she released one EP in 2012 and one in 2013, and ultimately packaged them together as a double EP called A Sea of Split Peas in 2014, after she signed to her first record label, Marathon Artists. This EP has a lot of songs that take inspiration from folk, psychedelic rock, blues rock, and it often features very simplistic and sometimes hypnotic melodies. And not just this record, but throughout her whole discography, she's writing lyrics that almost seems to come from the top of her mind. Her cadence and writing style makes it seem like it's just a continuous stream of consciousness.
And in my dreams I wrote the best song that I've ever written. Can't remember how it goes.
She's also using real-life stories in her songwriting that are interesting in of themselves. The song Avant-Gardener, for example, tells the story of Courtney waking up to a bland and mundane weekday where she's overslept. While lying in bed, she listens to the neighbor doing work in the backyard and feels inspired to do the same. But when Courtney starts to pull out the weeds, she suffers from an asthma attack and is rushed to the hospital.
All of a sudden, I'm having trouble breathing in. I'm having trouble breathing in.
Now, Barnett's first full-length album, Sometimes I Sit and Think and Sometimes I Just Sit, was released in March of 2015. This album is a bit heavier in sound compared to her EPs. Pedestrian at Best is an energetic, punk-inspired song where it sounds like her voice could fall apart any minute, and some of that rawness might come from the fact that Barnett wrote the song just in minutes before the recording. Then you also have other songs like Elevator Operator and Aqua Profunda that are filled with bluesy and pounding rhythms that always move forward. Barnett had spent about a year making the songs for this album and then introduced them to her band only a week before they were scheduled to record them. By doing this, she hoped to capture a fresh sound that would make an even greater impact on the listener. But other than the sound, songwriting, and recording process, there are other facets to the album that comes to mind as well. During her Tumblr IRL show, for example, she brought some of the artwork that she had produced herself for the album and gave some context to why she gained a fascination for Cheers.
When I was recording the album, I went round to my grandma's house and she has this poster, which is where I got the quote from. So sometimes I sit and think and sometimes I just sit, and I thought that would be a good title. And then when I started drawing, I don't know, it slowly, I just got stuck on the chair thing because of sitting, and they all kind of have memories or stories behind them. Not like they're anything crazy, but just, you know, some of them are like from my childhood, and my dad used to always collect old antique chairs and have them lying around the house, and it's just really small kind of memories.
In October 2017, Courtney started to collaborate on a new project with singer-songwriter and multi-instrumentalist Kurt Weill, who's probably most famous for his work as a solo artist and being the previous lead guitarist for the band The War on Drugs. On the album, they created new versions of songs they both had already made and released as solo artists. For example, you'll find a new version of Out of the Woodwork, which was originally made for Barnett's first EP. Another one is Peeping Tom, which was originally named Peeping Tomboy and was featured on Kurt Weill's fourth studio album, Smoke Ring for My Halo. It's actually a pretty laid-back album with a bunch of folk, country, and indie rock inspired songs. A lot of the times it sounds like the two are sharing a casual conversation from one artist to another. You can particularly hear this on the opening track, where they're sharing their personal creative habits.
When I'm all alone on my own by my lonesome and there ain't a single nother soul around, I wanna dig into my guitar, bend a blues riff that hangs.
Now, there's a great documentary called Friends of Wonder that tells two different stories. The first one is about a lavish New Jersey theater saved by a dedicated group of locals, and the second story is about Kurt and Courtney, who played a concert there, and they're also talking about their relationship as this is going on.
Is this shirt alright? Should I change my shirt?
Yeah, you don't like it? I like it.
You like it? It's just yellow. Maybe I'll just wear my Wailing Jennings shirt again. I actually felt like I knew her after the first time I met her, and then...
Yeah, it didn't take long for us to kind of click. I think our personalities are on a plane.
I guess what you can get from this documentary, other than the fascinating story of the theater and the people working there, is a view into Kurt and Courtney's friendship. They're just two very chill and easygoing people that deeply care about music and art.
It's about music and it's about art, and that's why people want to go to things. That's why I go to see music, because it's kind of refills you with like hope in a hopeless world.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit more about Courtney at the end here. So You might have realized that by now that she's quite shy by nature. Going from playing the guitar to writing songs and singing with her own band has been a long process for her. And it still seems like this is a problem for her, something that she has to go through whether she wants it or not.
You know, you are one of the most acclaimed indie artists on the scene over the last year or more, and yet you seem very kind of quiet and demure, you know?
I guess I'm kind of a more quiet person, and in the last couple of years I've kind of had to learn how not to be and how to talk to people.
But despite of having released several great records and faced her fear of being on stage and being a media personality in general, there's still something quite interesting about her story in the music business. Because she wasn't sure how to sell her music when she was just starting out, she went out of her way to create her own record label. She actually borrowed money from her grandma to start it. Over the years, she and her label has worked with many different artists such as Jen Cloher, The Finks, Evelyn, Ida Morris, and Loose Tooth, amongst others.
And then you form your own label and put that stuff out. I mean, that was a pretty bold move too. You never tried to shop it or anybody interested in putting this out for me?
I didn't really know how to do that. I didn't know how to shop stuff around, so, I'd make a store and people could buy it if they wanted to.
Become a record mogul.
Yeah, that's me.
I think one of the things that Courtney does best with her music is simply delivering what she honestly feels and thinks about different situations. The melodies reflect her personality, her lyrical stories provide glimpses into her everyday life. It's the simplicity of what she does that ultimately makes the biggest impact on the listener. Courtney Barnett is a really interesting person. She's really inspiring a lot of people, a lot of new people that are getting into the music industry. And she's actually proving that whether or not you're afraid of it, afraid of success, afraid of actually making your own thing, then you can do it no matter what. You just have to push through it, face the feelings that you have in the moment, and maybe write a song about it. That's it. Thank you so much for watching. I just want to spend a minute thanking all of my Patreons. Thank you so much for supporting me. You guys actually make it possible for me to make even better videos. So if you want to join as well, if you want to help me create better videos and make rock music more meaningful, then make sure you click the first link in the description below, and I'll see you over there. All right, take care.